Welcome back, everyone, to the last session. And thank you for staying with us. And in this section, we looked today, all day we looked how we can build extensions, kind of making first steps, hello world examples, and very simple tutorials with front-end and server. And we looked at kind of endpoint where cool stuff you can build with Jupyter.js and AI collaboration. But today, in this section, I'm going to tell you about how AI can help you build those extensions and get to those cool and useful examples. So I'm gonna give a little bit of introduction, but just a show of hands, like who is familiar with LLMs in general? Okay, probably a lot of people these days. So I'm gonna go through a little bit of introduction here, but I think first thing, if you wanna follow along what we're doing, you would wanna install two AI tools. And you might already have them, but if not, I'm gonna show you the instructions briefly. And you can start installing them, and I'll be talking while you're installing. I should take a look. There are two tools I recommend you use if you follow along this section. First tool is called Cursor, which is a fork of Visual Studio Code that provides agentic AI capabilities with a little panel on the side where you can chat with large language models. So what we recommend you do if you want to follow along and you never used Cursor, to go to cursor.com and download. I think I need to do. So you should go to cursor.com and download for your operating system. And to use AI features, usually there's a subscription, but you should be able to get a 1 week free plan to try it. So we recommend for this tutorial, Hobby Plan is gonna give you a week of usage without paying for it. So we recommend you try that. And then another tool we're gonna be using is called Claude Code. So if you compare with things like Cursor or VS Code, Claude is more for command line. It's a command line tool. If you live in command line, it provides very nice command line TUI or terminal user interface. It's gonna try to it's a really nice command line application, but ultimately they're both doing the same thing. So once again, follow the official setup instructions for Claude Code. It used to be that you need to have Node.js. I think not anymore. If you're on Mac, you can use Homebrew. On Mac, Linux, or WSL, you can use Bash script. And there's Windows instructions as well. Okay, so while you guys installing this, if you want to follow, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we want to achieve and what are we going to use. So with the AI assistant development, I want to set up expectation level for you. So working with AI, it's kind of working with a very eager junior engineer who've read through a lot of documentation, maybe up until last year, and it's very eager and trying to help you and will try everything, but it will not always be successful because it doesn't know everything, but it will try to do a lot of things. And advice, do not expect perfection. If it improves your workflow, 95% there or whatever percentage is, it's already really good. But you should not expect it to do everything for you, at least right now in 2025. Thus, you should always review the generated code. The level of your review depends on how much you trust, how much you understand, how much you care about the code that's being generated. But please always check, at least cursory look at generated code. And it will get sometimes very stupid mistakes. Don't get discouraged by that. Try to iterate and guide it. I would say it's as good as the context and information you give those tools. You're going to be interacting with AI tools mostly through natural language. It could be English, but it might understand your different language. And you just interact with it by prompting. You should clearly describe your intent. What are you trying to build? You want to explain the state you're in. Are you starting from beginning? Are you in the middle of the development? And this is the exact thing you're looking for. The more context and information you give it, the more it has a chance to succeed. And you want to constrain it to give it APIs to use, or either include snippets of documentation or places where it can find it. And you iterate with small steps. We're gonna show you in this that you could build entire apps, what they call wipe coding. You can build the whole thing in one pass with the one prompt. But maybe if you're doing it professionally and you're doing something serious, maybe you should take a more measured approach and work in stages. A lot of people raise their hands saying that they're familiar with LLM. I'm just going to explain a little bit. We're talking about large language models, usually built on transformer architecture. That's the current type of AI being used. It may change in a couple of years, but that's what we use today. Large language models can live in different places. Large and what's called frontier models, most capable models live on the servers of big companies who charge you API by the token or by the piece of text being generated. There are other smaller models that you may be running on a smaller server somewhere or on your local machine, but we're not going to touch on that today. I leave you some helpful advice in the materials, so you can try to run some models, especially if you have a newer hardware. You might be surprised how good the results are. And there are sort of three sort of levels of AI, sort of basic completions or chat. There is agentic AI. So I'm going to skip that explanation and say we're going to use agentic AI. So agentic AI relies on large language models running in a loop, and you give them certain tasks, and they can use tools, which are certain commands they can run on your computer or access different files or APIs. And then they iterate and they run those tools, they see the results of them, and they check if they're done. If they're not, they continue iterating until they reach their goal. So that's how they trained. They were given tools, and they were given instructions to finish a goal. So that's how they behave. Once again, we're touching on what tools we're going to use. We're going to use Cursor and Cloud Code. And in this tutorial, so high-level outline what we're going to do. First, we're going to work in the Cursor, and we're going to go try to continue building the extension we created in earlier sections, which shows a random image of cats. And we want to continue building it and build image editor. If you want to edit those images, maybe apply some basic filters and cropping. So first, we're going to try to work in Cursor and build that in one-shot prompt. So we're going to say build the whole thing. We'll take a look at what it will produce, what sort of trade-offs are with this approach. And then we're going to show you the sort of project manager workflow where you're going to create different plans and work in stages to implement different features. And we're going to see how that works. And later, I'm going to do a quick demo doing the same thing in Cloud Code, just so you have an idea if you prefer this kind of tool. So if you're following along, either you finish the extension from earlier part. In this case, you can just continue to be in the same environment and in the same folder. Or if not, or if you're just joining us for this session, you can grab a finished extension we prepared for you and clone it locally. That extension is where we stopped. It's going to show you random pictures with cats. So if people follow along, I'm going to give you some time. Actually, who is still installing Cursor and Cloud Code, if you follow us? OK. So after that, you may grab this repo and clone it. And we use in exactly the same environment, but I give you the command just in case you want to reproduce it. Oh yeah. So yeah, if you're working on reproducing the steps here and you cut up, you can use a green sticky. If you have issues, you can use a red sticky. Actually, if most people are not trying to follow right now, I can kind of go faster and kind of show how it works, if that's OK with everyone. OK. So let me I'm going to start following my own instructions here. I'm going to open this here. And I'm going to open my terminal. Hopefully the font is large enough. So I'm in the projects. I'm going to use option 2. And I'm going to fork the repo. So we're forking that repo, and we're cloning it to our machine. Maybe it's too big right now. And then we go to this directory. And I already activated and pre-built the environment. So I'm going to make sure I install the extension. I'm going to enable development mode. And then I'm going to activate this server extension. And build it for good measure. So we should see our extension with random cat images working. Yep. OK. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of how Git can be a good friend when working with AI-assisted development. So the thing is, you're going to iterate a lot with AI prompts. You're going to ask it to build a feature. Then you're going to notice perhaps something is not what you wanted, or there's some issue. Then you're going to fix it. And you're going to be happy because you just built something in minutes. Then you're going to move on maybe to next feature. And then it could break it completely. And it could change your code in a way you don't know how to go back. So Git, in this case, Git is a good friend because you can use different levels. Like you can save files, you can stage them, you can commit, and you can push. So whatever you reach a working state that you like, just save your files and stage them. if something goes horribly wrong, you just undo all your unstate changes, and you back to a known good state. So that's the thing with all the AI tools. Whenever they got lost, it's maybe easier to roll back to previous known good state and start over again than try to send a lot of commands to fix it because it just cannot find its way back. So that's and I think this workflow, honestly, is good even if you don't use AI, but it's just gonna become really important to emphasize it. So, okay, at this point, I'm gonna launch Cursor and we're gonna start working on our AI-generated features. So I'm gonna skip for Cloud Code instructions for now, and I'm gonna just open Cursor. And we see our extension directory with our Python sources and our TypeScript sources. So I guess since not too many people follow, I'm just gonna follow it myself, and you can follow me too. But first exercise here is we're gonna try to look at agents MD file and in general AI rules. This is kind of recent development and recent standard that emerged that help you set up your AI development environment in a way that's gonna be more reliable and make less errors. So how does it work? So when you notice when you were cloning and when you're using copier with our extension, we included a file called agentsmd. If you agreed to include AI rules, this file got created and added to your extension. So what's this file? Essentially, developers of all this agentic AI tools realized you need to help it align, and sometimes you want to set certain rules you don't want to break anytime you work with a project. Use environments is a good practice, so you can just include those good practices. You can include standards your company or team follow for variable names or for any other conventions, and you can put them. So initially, Cursor used a system called Cursor Rules, but then a bunch of developers of these tools got together and decided to use just this very simple, very crude standard, which is just a markdown file, which should be called agentsmd, verbatim, using capital letters. And that's what allows you to create those rules for your repository or even subfolders of repository and write down anything that AI tools should follow or anything, even like human developers should follow when working on your projects. Usually this kind of thing would be added to documentation or your README file of your repo, but it's sometimes your tools don't know where to find it, so you can just add it all into this agents.md file. And our first task is to take a look at this agents.md file and try to customize it for ourselves. So if we take a look here, I'm going to make it larger. So you can see we call this agentsmd JupyterLab extension development. And when it was templatized, so whenever you chose a different type of extensions like frontend and server or theme, your agentsmd file from this template will also be customized. So in this case, it knows that we use frontend and server extension type, and then it talks about different ways it should behave. It's quite a large file. We're still iterating on it. We just recently added it to our template. And we try to add very important instructions, which we found out were kind of needed when you work with AI tools, trying to build JupyterLab extensions. They would sometimes have a lot of things in their training data that were maybe an issue in the past, but maybe on JupyterLab 4 it's not an issue anymore. Or they would use wrong package manager when trying to build things. They would use NPM because an AI tool would realize there's a whole bunch of TypeScript files and normally use NPM to build TypeScript. But in this case, it should use GLPM. So we can search and see we mentioned GLPM quite a lot of times that it should use GLPM and kind of reinforce it. Okay, but the first task here for us is to try to customize it, because that's another thing. So far along today, we were working in a single Conda environment. And the AI tool may or may not realize that. It more likely will not realize it. You work in this environment. It will try to run GLPM or pip install whenever it is running it. So we added a section in this agentsmd which reinforces and talks about, hey, use Conda, Mamba, or Micro Mamba. But in our case, we know that we use our JupyterCon 2025 environment. So first thing we want to do here is to customize it to use exactly the environment we want to use. So I'm going to remove this section. I'm going to paste this one. And on my computer, I do have Conda installed. So I'm going to say Conda activate JupyterCon 2025. OK. So with that, our AI tools, when they use our repository, they should activate the correct environment. So let's go ahead and check it and check if it uses the correct thing. So short note on model selection, if you never use cursor, I recommend you do it. By default, it will come with auto enabled. Auto model is something that cursor is doing behind the scenes, trying to route your request to the best model, and decision is up to them. I recommend you choose one of the models that are recommended and one of the frontier models, because in that case, you're going to have the best chance of the best model. So I'm going to use Claude Sonnet 4.5 by Anthropic. Another good models right now is GPT-5 or Gemini 2.5 Pro. Just don't use auto model, unless you want to save some of your included credits. Next thing, we're going to check. So now we created those agentsmd file. We're going to check, is our AI agent recognizing the rules? So it's a little bit tricky in a way I'll show you in a bit, but we're going to ask it, hey, what package manager should I use for JupyterLab extension frontend? Let's send it. And why is it tricky? So it's tricky because agentsmd is relatively recent standard, and Cursor supports it, but it doesn't give you any visual indication for whatever reason. So when I previously using its own Cursor rule standard, it would show it with a little indicator, but agentsmd, it doesn't show it. So how do we know it actually used it? So we can scroll up, and first we can see it answering correctly, right? But how do we know it used our rules? So you can look, Anthropic's Sonnet 4.4 is what's called thinking model, so it produces some thinking text for itself to try to solve the problem. That's how it was trained. But it's useful for us because we can see kind of how it processes information before giving you like polished answer. So you can see somewhere it will mention the rules. So you see it kind of brings up our own rules where we say don't mix package managers. I think it may, yeah, look into the workspace rules, there is clear section on this. So we now we're sure that it used our own agents.md and it's not just, going off of its own training knowledge and hallucinating its own rules. Okay. So the next step we're going to get is to help us to prepare for development, right? So one good thing about those agentic tools, they kind of can read your rules and can set up the whole thing and run all the required commands to build your extension. So yeah, get ready for development. Starting new, chat, and I'm going to paste this prompt. What it says is prepare my extension for development. So it needs to check the environment, make sure that JupyterLab is installed, Node.js is installed, and all the things are good and correct. So let's run it. So here's what agentic part of agentic AI is. It's using the different tools. And in this case, Cursor comes with its own built-in tools like creating and running bash commands, reading your files in your project. But through the standard called MCP, which you heard a little bit earlier today, you can bring pretty much any tools for it to use. And they would advertise itself in the system prompt, and the model would be able to pick them up to do more useful things for you. So let's see what it was doing while I was talking. First, we checked the list of environments. We found JupyterCon. And then we activated that environment as instructed. And then it starts to check, do we have good JupyterLab? Yes, we do. Do we have good Node.js? Yes, we do. And then it checked all the TypeScript sources, so you can run your linters as well. And then it makes sure that extension is installed. And I think at the end, it just built it. So then it provides you this nice summary after running all this command. It shows everything you have installed, so you could do a quick diagnostic like that. But we know it's been built already, so I'm not going to just stop on that. And you're ready. So let's try to build something in one prompt, in one-shot prompt. Let me switch to that. OK. So current features of our extension, we display random images, we show captions, we have a refresh button, and we can restore our layout. So let's build some new features. Let's add some easy filters, grayscale, blur, sharpen, sepia, add some basic crop, brightness adjustment. So you can see how we started with like simple hello world, and now we started work with images. Now we're adding more image editing features, and you can see how in a couple steps we can build something, let's say, useful for machine learning engineers. So we can build a functionality for you to draw bounding boxes, for example. But we're getting almost there to something useful to real people in the real world. So let's try to build it. The section is called Power and Parallel of One-Shot Prompts. First, we're going to witness the power, like how well could it work. So here's a prompt I prepared for you. Extend this image viewer extension to add image editing capabilities. Add editing controls, as we described. And say, I know the Pillow is a good library for image analysis on Python side, so let's use that. I add a little bit of requirements, what the front end should do. It should update the image immediately as we do some actions and show the current filter applied, and allow changing multiple edits before saving. And I give some technical requirement to use REST endpoints for editing image. And let's copy that here, and let's start it. So one thing I want to show you as I use this AI LM tools is the context window. So usually those AI models, they cannot work, they work by generating text, and they work as a chat, so you send a command, they generate some text or generate some tool commands and run them, but it all exists as a one giant conversation or string of text. Unfortunately for us, we're limited by the size of whatever hardware is or how it was trained. The size of that conversation is limited. And the size of that conversation is called context window. And it's measured in tokens. Tokens are not quite symbols, and they're not quite words. They're like parts of text parts of words. They roughly correspond to like 3/4 of the word. They would grab certain parts of the word and it would map them to some numbers. And then your AI, your large language model, work with those numbers to produce the next token, the next parts of the word. What's important to take a look at and track is how much tokens you already used in this conversation. They still work pretty well in the beginning when your context window is pretty empty. And let's say they work pretty well like until your window is like half full. I know there is a large, models with very large context window, but in practice, people see them starting to break down when you reach, half of your window. Even if you have 1 million tokens, they may not effectively use all of these tokens, all of this context, and they kind of start to forget. So practical recommendation here, watch out for this indicator. So you see we already used 22% of our window. Watch out for this window and start a new chat when you work on a new feature, new step, whatever you reach some logical conclusion. Check that check your code, make sure it works correctly. Maybe save and stage it in Git, and then start a new chat. And that way, it will have a fresh context to go off and be the best version of itself, if you can say that. But quietly in the background, it was creating a to-dos for itself. It would talk about adding pillow dependency. It would create REST endpoints for us, everything we asked for. It would add pillow as a dependency. Go ahead and start editing Python to create those pillow operations to work on this cat image files and add different, extend our API to have new endpoints. And thankfully for the morning session, you guys all know what this means. And you're not just blindly sort of trusting it. But you can see it's then switched to create an image editor widget. And it started adding CSS. I personally hate to work with CSS, so I'm really grateful for this. And at the end, it's already out there checking that our extension is okay, that it didn't break itself in such a way that the Python Jupyter server would not even load. So it's checking and building and testing right now. And I think it's providing us the final report. Image editing features added. Here's some backend changes. And here's some front-end changes. So let's take a look. So let's open JupyterLab. Well, you see, it failed. So it didn't work as expected. It looks like we got all the buttons and filters we wanted, but there's no image. Okay. Let's quickly check what's going on. Let's add the files we created. So this one is just adding dependency. And when reviewing your changes, it's useful to open them in your cursor, and it will show you with a red and green kind of what changed. Okay, this one seems fine. You can jump to the next file. So you see in the routes.py, we added pill as a dependency, and we added image added route handler with a post method. So the front-end client would post something to create, to edit image. It would send the image data. It would send operation from a list of operation it supports, or it will send a value for brightness contrast. And then it will send that bytes to be processed with image.filter. And it will return it back, convert it to base 64, and dump it back into JSON. And here's your operations to apply sepia, apply crop, and this one is image save. So, okay, We added one endpoint for editing, doing different operations with image and sending it back. We sometimes also want to save the edited image back to the disk, as you do in the image editor. So here's this endpoint for that. Seems fine on the first pass. And here on the front end, here's the error message, save icon, and different controls that we added. A lot of controls. Sure, sometimes it's caused by not properly rebuilding the extension. So let me try to just rebuild it. And we can take a look. When I was preparing that, sometimes it would produce the perfectly working extensions. Sometimes it would fail. And I thought, either way, it's a valuable lesson. Because sometimes these tools can wow you. Sometimes they can produce something completely broken, and you wouldn't even know why. So, but let's check here. Chances are, we just need to rebuild it. And if not, we'll move on to the next step where we're going to be way more careful. We're going to create different plans. We can ask AI to create plans and create different stages of our development, like MVP and additional stages with different features. And by iteration, we can go slower. We can make sure everything works. OK. Yeah. For whatever reason, I need to figure out why, but I needed to. Maybe it didn't rebuild the front end. But now we rebuild it, and we see it's showing up. It's interesting. It's also not scrolling for me past that. Maybe we didn't implement the scrollable container. But you can see the image operations working. And it's kind of cool. They're even compounding. So that's like a peril. That's the peril of one-shot prompt development. Well, we ask it, we want to provide different operations, but I understood it as like I can try sepia and I can switch to blur and switch to sharpen. And it would do like, if I don't save that, it would just do one and then reset and do another. But it understood it as compounding them. Well, here's what you get for using one-shot prompt. And here's two paths. You can start asking it questions or giving a task to kind of fix it and then do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it not. Depends on the size of the feature and complexity of it. But I'm going to show you the workflow where you reduce the number of these issues by kind of taking more active thinking and more active kind of decision making about this. But it seemed to be working. So we have some version of image editor now in our extension. So let me go back to cursor. And let's see if I followed my own advice. Now, I think I did because I started with the committed point of my extension. So I think I'm going to roll it back any changes that have to do with image editor. And I'm going to commit the change relating agents.md. And let's jump back to our tutorial materials. Exercise C. So we're going to try to do product manager framework, where we're going to first set up and ask AI to create a plan for us. If we want to build this large feature, usually working on software development, you create certain plans. Okay, we're going to build and ship this feature first, maybe minimum viable product, and then we're going to add all of these advanced features after that. But we want to build on a foundation, and we're going to build layer by layer and not the whole thing at once. because we can have issues like that where it doesn't align with what we want because we actually didn't give it a place to make all of these decisions. So to start on that, I'm going to create a directory called plans. Here it is, empty. Let me put it side by side. And then we're going to start a new chat. So at this point, we rolled back to where we just have the cats and no editing. Ooh. And here's a prompt. So it's similar to what we had before, but we ask it to break it down in phases and do not write the code yet, but write a plan. So MVP phase, we're going to have basic filter buttons and some backend endpoint scaffolding and front-end display of processed image. And then we're going to start adding filters one by one. Maybe it's not super, maybe the hardest step is MVP still, but at least we're not going to pile on all of these changes all at once. So we're going to start here, send the prompt, and we ask it to save it to plans/image editing feature.markdown. So it's a very interesting pattern you can use with AI-assisted development. You can ask it to create your READMEs, or you can ask it to explain your code or create plans in a simple markdown format. It seemed to work the best with a markdown. And we can take a look what it generated. It's still writing it. After that, we're going to review the plan and commit it. And then we're going to run 3 of those follow-up prompts to build us MVP and check it and to build all the next stages. Here's another thing I can show you while it's working. In Cursor, you'll see this agent button, and you see different modes of conversation with it. So one of them is called Ask. It's more like chat interface. It's not going to try to attempt to edit anything. It would mostly be read-only, reading things, but not writing any code or saving it. So that's a good place to ask it about the code architecture without it, rewriting it and whatnot. And you notice another section here, another mode called Plan. What that intend to do is something like what we're doing right now, but I recommend you stick with Markdown files, and the reason being these plans, if you use a plan mode, whatever it will create will live in Cursor in the separate chat with the plan mode. So if you ever switch to working on a different machine, if you send this to your colleague to continue working on that, they're not going to have these plans, so they're only going to exist in here. By switching and running pretty much similar prompt and asking it to save it into a Markdown file, you create this reusable artifact, which is useful for you, which is useful for your colleagues, and is useful for AI agents you may have set up. It's doing very extensive planning for us. It added 900 lines of Markdown. I'm kind of afraid of the amount of planning it did. Let's open the plan and take a brief look. we go. Image editing feature implementation plan. You have the current state, where you describe what we have right now. You describe the target state. It's good to have these pointers for the model to see how far it's still, or for any developer, human or AI. And it will describe different phases. So we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as requested. Different cross-phase consideration. State management, image transfer format is a good decision to use base64. Server-side processing with Pillow. Security consideration. So one of the things you see when you ask it to create plans and use words like MVP or professional, it started to reason and think about things like security, which for one-shot prompt, it never even crossed its mind to look at the security approach or anything like that. So I think it's certainly interesting that the prompt you send influences as much. But what's good about Markdown file, you can commit it to your version control, and you can manually edit things you don't like. So for example, did we have any PNG files there? So we can just remove that. And after that, you can just add plans. Let's go back to a plan. I think I already talked about managing context and costs, but this information is there for you. And then I'm going to skip through the docs, but you can add one cool thing in Cursor. If you do @ sign, you can see all the different things you can add to context. And one of them is docs. So if you have, there's some built-in popular docs, but if it doesn't have it, you can click on Add New Doc, and you can go find, for example, JupyterLab API, or JupyterLab docs. And I can find API reference. So this page, I use it a lot of times trying to figure out what I can use. So you can grab it and make it available for Cursor, and it will index a page and make it available when it needs to. And you can say JupyterLab API, maybe JupyterLab TypeScript API, something like that, JavaScript API. So now you can mention that, and it's going to be available if you work on API. Kind of jumped. So now we created a plan. We're going to go to the next step and ask it to implement it. Here it is. Ready for phase 1. Please implement the MVP, basic grayscale and sepia filters with backend endpoint and front-end display. So we're going to move slowly. We're going to move side by side. And it's going to look at the plans we created. And it's going to be using them to inform its decisions. And then you see, we'll review the changes again. We'll make sure it builds, make sure it runs as we intended, and then we're going to iterate and go step by step. So for large software, for this thing, we're just adding a small number of features, of image editing features. But if you imagine large extension like you've seen, Jupyter JS or Jupyter AI, There's a lot of moving places, a lot of moving pieces. The system is complex. So if you're working on a particular feature, try to describe it how you want to see it as well as you can, and then create a plan either manually or using AI, and then build it stage by stage. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, look for your context window. As you can see, every time we kind of fill in 30 to 50% of our context window. While we wait for that to run, I'm going to talk to you some more prompting techniques. So if you ever use agile development philosophy, and writing user stories is also part of it. So it's very useful if you develop for your users to figure out what problem they're facing, what kind of outcome they want to have, and the outline of your solution. So for example, what we can do after we build all of this image editing features, you may say like, oh, I want to apply the combinations. The way we saw the single shot prompt built for us is applying the combination and kind of applying them all one after another. So you might say, let users save their favorite filter combination. I'm sorry, this is a different feature, but let's say you want to apply blur and sepia for like vintage look. So, and you say, okay, let's users create their own filters by combining them. So you can say, let users save their favorite filter combinations. What would work better is to write it in the form of user story. Let me blow it up a little bit. And you can say, as a user who frequently applies the same combination as filters, I want to say my favorite sequences as name presets. So it's something like a Photoshop software, right? And we can quickly reapply them to new images so you can maintain consistent editing styles without manually repeating all the steps. That's a good description of what user want to see, and you would use things like acceptance criteria. What would constitute feature being done? In this case, user will be able to save their filters. They would be able to select it. They'll be able to delete and all other things you want to do with presets. And then you can, you may or might not add technical requirements. So if you have an idea in your head how to best do it, you can add it here. In some cases, you may not, like me with CSS. So I will not add any CSS and let it figure it out. But it's a trade-off. The more you can guide it to better technical decisions, the better. But in some cases, it's fine for you to not do it. So this is how you can write those in form of user stories. But by now, it looks like everything is completed for the phase one. Let me quickly test that. Actually, do we know if it ran pip install? It did run glpm build, and it did run pip install, so let's see. Okay, I do not see any image editing features at all. So let's try to rebuild it. I'm kind of curious. It looks like it ignored our instructions about using Conda environment because it's not present here. And that's the thing with the modern AI tools. Even though you put it in your agentsMD and your rules clearly, and it said it's important, it could just ignore it. So Yeah, just install it in my base environment. So let me quickly rebuild the front end. And give it a quick test. Oop. Still not there. Let's take a look at the code changes. So I did install Pillow again. It added an image processor.py. Let's try to keep all. Maybe that didn't get saved. And now there's OS error. I'm hitting this error sometimes. I'm gonna try to get clean. Oh, but then we lose our code. So I'll install it. Okay. It doesn't like to be installed too many times. You liked it now. Still not seeing anything. So we can try to attempt a quick debug. I don't see any obvious issues, so I'm not sure what went wrong. Edit image editor. And edit image API. Not sure what's happening here, but I think we can just skip to the next steps and give you exercise to try it at home as well. But anyway, so here's what you get a lot of times. How are we doing on time? I have 30 minutes. Okay. So I had a plan to go do the same things kind of using Claude Code. Matt, do you want to introduce Claude Code a little bit or talk about it?
Show Claude Code?
Yeah. I can open it up for you if you want here. Yeah. Or you can, yeah.
Mic 1? Okay, cool. So Claude Code is a lot like using Cursor, except it works entirely in your command line interface. So here Konstantin has started Claude Code by running the Claude command. And that just kind of brought up this nice little Claude interface with a little guy. It tells you a couple of things you can do. So for example, you can turn thinking on and off with the tab key. You can press question mark to get shortcuts. So for example, you can use exclamation point to directly run some bash commands. You can do slash to run some other commands. So for example, you could add a new working directory to the context window. You can clear things. You can compact the context window. You can just kind of browse through all these things. So it's very nice all in the CLI. Oh, and I didn't know this. It supports the @ syntax for referencing specific files. I'm going to have to use that in the future. So you can prompt Claude Code just like Cursor, and it has your entire current directory in its context window already. So because Konstantin ran it in this JupyterCon 2025 Developing Extensions demo directory, it knows about everything there. So let's explain our code base. And then it's just going to ponder. It's kind of cute. It always says something different here. That feels like a bit much. In fact, maybe we could restore it to its previous state, get rid of the stuff that the LLM did before, and just have it explain the extension as it was, because then it's a little smaller scope, more comprehensible. Okay, so I'm going to interrupt it, and I'm going to do git restore dot. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. And I think that worked. So let's do git status. And then it shows the output of the command. There's 10 lines that are hidden, and I can do Control O to expand and show everything. It did not restore. Okay, it's because they're staged, right? Okay. And then Control O, git restore staged. Oh, I need to add the exclamation point. I'm not used to this keyboard. That's okay. I'll do WS to restore both the staged and working, so it's just going to completely throw away all the changes that haven't been committed. And then git status, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Okay, so now we should just have our extension as it was when we finished working on it together. I want to have it change something and show that workflow. So maybe, what's something really simple we could do? Let's have it change the icon on the refresh button to something else, or change. It has an icon. Okay, so let's have it change the tooltip on the refresh button to read, "Get me a new kitty cat." Oh, did I press enter by accident? I did. Well, I don't think it'll care that I didn't close the quotes. Do you have this set to auto accept? Okay. I was going to show that, but if it's not going to prompt, then it won't let me. So normally, when you first start using Claude Code, it'll probably propose a change to you to review. It'll display that directly in the terminal, and it'll give you the opportunity to review it and either accept it or reject it and tell it what to do differently. I really like that functionality. I think I'm kind of more of a, I don't want to say Luddite, but I'm more afraid of the AI than Konstantin is. So I'll leave it in that mode where I ask it to show me everything that it's doing, and then once I'm really comfortable that it's on the right path and it can finish the task, then I'll just be like, okay, stop asking me, just finish it. So I think what's happening here is it's just going to go until it's all the way done, which should be quick, but it is taking an awful long time. It should. Yeah. Yeah. It's normally not this slow, and when you were using cursor, it was fine. Sorry? I totally didn't hear that. Say it one more time. Okay. Sorry, my hearing is not great. Maybe, like, should I... This seems to be working okay. Okay, all right. We're going to give up on Claude Code, but that's what it looks like.
You can get access to try Claude Code, and hopefully it works better than it worked for us here. You can go to AWS workshop page, and you should have a link here in the materials. Here you go. So if you scroll to the demo part, you can go to this AWS workshop page. And you can use this code, so take a picture or write it down. I think it will work for 24 hours or just for tonight, but you will be able to try to set it up. And once there, what essentially it will do, it will create a temporary AWS account. You'll go into that and find Bedrock, and you can find API keys, and you can generate your API key and set up these 3 commands. By the way, all the slides, all the slides attached to materials website, so you can find it later. And once you do that, you should be able to run your Claude Code. So just once again, this code, if you want to take advantage of that and try it out tonight. Yeah, okay. We now have a lot of time left, so we kind of thought we're going to have independent work section. Obviously, there's not too much time left. So I wanted to show you some cool examples of pretty simple extensions I built using AI earlier in preparation for this. So I'm just going to show you the prompt I used and the kind of final result. So this section is actually, if you want to continue on what you learned today, if you want to build your own extension, or if you want to contribute to 600 plus existing extensions for JupyterLab 4, this section, we're not going to have time to go for this today, not much, but you can read for it and see, you can find inspiration on what to build. You should have all the knowledge how to build it. And you can find awesome projects on this list or from what you saw today to which you can contribute and build this awesome software together. So we kind of, for this session, and you can continue on your own, in the time after this session, you can either build something from scratch, and there's a lot of new ideas out there that are not implemented yet, or you can contribute to something existing and help community build new stuff. So I think I'm going to scroll to those examples I built in preparation. So here's a one, very simple to try AI development workflow. Add a button in the status bar to celebrate something. It should show confetti on top of UI for 3 seconds. Very whimsical, very simple. It actually doesn't need the server part of the extension. So if you use a template, choose just a front-end extension. And you can give it sort of pointers if you want. You can play around and see how it uses it. And here's how it looks when I build it. It's just a celebrate button in the bottom, which builds confetti. On a first glance, like, what is this stupid thing? On the second glance, working in JupyterLab, you might have something you really want to do. Like maybe you have like a list of commands you type all the time in your Python, or you want to run like some bash command in your cell. And you can ask AI, or you can build it yourself to create a little button in the UI. You customize JupyterLab experience to add actions you might want to have. Maybe you want to have celebration once in a while. Another example I tried is to create a theme. So themes are also nice, they're highly visual. People like them. I was going off of what's been really popular, K-pop demon hunters. And, and that's what it built. Everyone has their own interest and taste, so you can build theme for whatever you like. You can build, people build a lot of dark themes. There's different things that will go easy on your eyes. So you can build whatever theme you want. In AI development work cycle, you can even provide it. You can do some search and provide it with an image. Be careful when you distribute that after that, but for your own use, why not? And then the last thing, it was something a little more complicated. For example, CPU stats. So there, I believe there is already extension that shows your server stats in the sidebar, in the status bar. And there's a popular extension that shows you your NVIDIA GPU stats if you use NVIDIA GPU. But this one is like simple idea, plain on that. But I want to see CPU stats, maybe CPU temperature to see like how hard I'm hitting my machine or some server somewhere. And also I provide some prompts how to build it, but it worked reasonably well for me. So I didn't even bother adding like launcher icon, but it would show me my cores on my machine. On Mac, PSUtil does not get access to CPU temperature, but that's kind of what I researched prior to that. And yeah, we try to give like some fun ideas you can explore. You can have theme switcher as a simple button. You can do quotes of the day. If you ever used on some like HPC servers, when you log in, it will give you this very thoughtful like quote from someone. I don't know who set it up, but I always find it like very quirky and delightful. So you can build that for you here as well, as to have a tradition going. You can do shortcut viewer to show you all the shortcuts. And you can build those things for you, or you can build it for your community, for your users. You can explore all these ideas. File stat analyzer, different Git things, a lot of toy examples are built using Git because it's such a powerful tool with a lot of different flags. A lot of people attempted to build different tools and UIs for that. And yeah, and then you can go, I think thanks to Rosio, she found this link where you can search JupyterLab, core JupyterLab, for extension ideas. So essentially, contributors to JupyterLab thought, someone asked them, hey, can I do this? And they figure out maybe it's not part of the core experience, but would be awesome extension idea. And currently there's 69 of those exist on GitHub. So if you want to build like a cool thing someone already asked for, you can go and find it here. Okay. And the second path is to contribute to existing extensions, and I should include core into that because core JupyterLab needs contributors. But you can also contribute to awesome JupyterLab extensions a lot of people use. You can find them using GitHub, using good first issue label. If you're not familiar with good first issue, it's this kind of software movement where people maintaining open source repositories would mark certain issues or even create certain issues and mark them specifically for beginners. So there is a space and time for people to practice building maybe less important things, but they'll get a lot of practice on this and they improve product. And then check the project needs, check the issues, check the pull requests, see what people are working on. Participate in JupyterLab to find help and to find other people doing what you do. And let's see if I had anything more I wanted to mention. Yeah, I mentioned JupyterLab. Let me just bring it up.
Yes.
So this is a place where I think all core maintainers are there, and a lot of users and a lot of developers in general who use Zulip. Wait, is there a link to that? The first one.
Yeah.
So Zulip is this awesome open source Python-based chat software to which Jupyter community largely migrated and trying to migrate even more. And you can run it. You can install it. It's kind of similar to Slack or Discord if you use that. So you can install it and find.
Use it directly in the browser.
You can use it directly in the browser without logging in. So it's kind of like a forum. So what's really annoys me about Slack or things like Discord, you need to get through all these authentication filters to even start looking at things. Here you saw we completely went here without logging in. You can see there's a lot of things going on. Please join our JupyterCon channel and participate while you're here and after. I think with that, we just want to wrap up our session and our day. Can you guys go on the stage as well with me?
Are you going to be at sprints tomorrow?
Thursday?
Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so on Thursday, if you all want to start doing some of this stuff that we just talked about in Build Your Own Extension, myself, Konstantin, Jason, and Rosio, will you be there on Thursday? Okay, so all four of us are going to be there on Thursday at the sprint day. We'd love to see you there, and we'd also love to help you build whatever it is you're excited to build. So if you show up on Thursday, feel free to ask us for help. Definitely feel free to interrupt us if we look busy. Don't worry about it. Just come say hi and ask what you want to ask, and we'll try and help you as best we can. Anything else?
Go build awesome stuff.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming.